There we are. We are live. And we are doing some groundhog coding. Hello, folks. Or, hey, QED coders, this is Michael. That's better. Groundhog coding. This is kind of the idea of doing katas. But, you see, this comes from kind of the old days where I used to just go out to a mall, find a TRS-80 that's on display. I mean, this is way old days, and it was blinking a cursor, and you could just walk up to it and type in a program. By the time your mom says, "Okay, it's time to leave," you've got a ball bouncing around on the screen. I miss those days. Now we go into a client's office and we say, "Hey, this is what we can do for you. Let's put together an estimate." Okay, that's going to be 6 months before we've got something working. That's kind of frustrating. How far can we get from scratch, building an application in just one session? How far can we get? To help me there, I have just launched Jinaga. And Jinaga is a Node framework that helps you build resilient, reliable, and connected web applications. So this is just out of beta. I'm using it on a real application right now, but this is an experiment. How far can we get with Jinaga building an application from scratch up to a real application? How far can we get in one session? So the rules of this game are that I can use anything that is public. So I can use everything that you can get from Jinaga, from Node, from Webpack, all of the fun stuff. So if it's public, you can use it. You can't start with any existing code. You can't open an existing repository. You can't copy from an existing project, except perhaps in the future. Not today, but in the future, I will allow starter packs or starter kits. So starting application, not your application, but something to not domain specific that you can start from. But right now, we are going to start from the getting started instructions. So this is public. So these are available to you or to me as I do this. So let me go ahead and start up Visual Studio Code. Brand new Visual Studio Code editor. And the first thing that I want to do, create a brand new folder. Whoa. Got the resolution set really big so you can read exactly what's going on. Okay, so inside of projects, let's create a brand new folder. And we're going to try to create yet another chat application, Yaka. All right, so there's my Yaka folder. So Visual Studio Code, Yaka, nice and empty. And we have a terminal. WSL, that's Windows Subsystem for Linux. So we are at a bash prompt right here. We are running Linux. I've already got Node. I've already got Postgres. So we can start with these, assuming that these are the blank slate. Maybe sometime in the future, I'll start with a blank virtual machine. That'd be interesting. So I even have to install these. But we're starting here. So let's install Jinaga. Well, before I can do that, instructions don't say that, but before I do that, I have to do npm init. I'm going to create a new Node application. It's going to be called Yaka, yet another chat application. And the entry point will be server.js. In fact, it's going to be dist/server.js. So I'm going to build some code into the dist folder and server.js will be the entry point there. So for today, no tests. We'll focus on that another day. No Git repository, no keywords, author, me. With you. And this is going to be MIT. Yes. Now I've got a package JSON. I can go ahead and fix my little mistake there. Brand new application. Okay. Now I can install Jinaga. npm install save Jinaga. And it should be getting down 2.0.1 because, of course, 2.0.0 didn't last very long. There was a bug. I had to fix it. So don't get too hung up on version numbers. They don't last long. What does Jinaga do for you? Well, Jinaga, it does all of your, it does what a database does, it does what an API does, and it does them both together. So you don't have to write a custom data schema, you don't have to write a custom API. You just use Jinaga, and then you can save data all the way from the browser. It gets saved through the server into the database, and then run queries from the browser. They come all the way back. But now that we've done that, -- save Jinaga. So why am I not? Oh, right there. Yeah, dependencies. Jinaga 201. Perfect. Okay, well, Jinaga is not the only dependency I need. In fact, here's the instructions I should have started with. I really need all of this other stuff. So we want body parser, cookie parser, ES6 promises. So lots of things that contribute to the application. So while it's installing all of those things, so we're building on top of Express. So if you're familiar with Node.js, Express is a really simple HTTP web server. We're going to use that to do all of our routing. These other things like PG, that's Postgres. That's how Jinaga saves its data. Passport, that's for authentication. We probably won't get that far today. But I'm an optimist. Yes, of course we'll get that far. I'm an optimist because it's in the list. So these are things that we will need at runtime. These are things that we will need at development time. Webpack. Webpack is pretty awesome. Webpack basically takes all of your JavaScript code, bundles it up, and produces one file that is downloaded to the browser. Better than that, Webpack also packages up your CSS. Better than that, Webpack also minifies. So yeah, you've got bundling, minification. Better than that, Webpack also understands several different module systems. And in fact, what I'm going to do is not only am I going to install Webpack, I am going to install TypeScript. Because I'm an optimist. So Webpack can even take your TypeScript files, compile them into JavaScript, bundle them, minify them, create one package that is then downloaded to the browser. Manages all the dependencies between those things. It's pretty awesome. But I will show you those steps as I get there. Right now, installing our development dependencies. Okay, so the steps of developing an application using Jinaga is, first of all, we set up Express. Let's take a look at that. So in Express, we have the Express runtime, we've got the HTTP server. We'll also set up the body parser, and that allows us to grab information from the HTTP request and parse that, turn that into JSON, and manage that. We will need that later for authorization. And in fact, you know what? It's set up here because even Jinaga needs it. So these quick steps set up an Express runtime. And yes, I am copying and pasting code, but this is code that's available to you, and it's in a startup. This is intended for you to copy and paste. So it's just against the rules to copy and paste code from some other running projects, but it's okay to copy and paste code from a set of startup scripts or startup steps. Okay. We've got those dependencies set up. So here are all my runtime dependencies. Here are all my development time dependencies. And you'll notice, hey, I've got a node modules here. It's got a whole bunch of stuff in it. That's cool. I don't yet have a dist server.js. I want something there. Let me create a source folder. Source, this is where I'm going to put all my client-side code and all my server-side code. In fact, let me go ahead and separate those. I've got client and I've got server. Client, server. So I'm going to write TypeScript for both the client and for the server. At this point, I'm setting up Express, so I'm going to write it on the server. So let me create server.ts. This is my TypeScript file. Here's the JavaScript code that I started with, and JavaScript is valid TypeScript, but we want to do a little bit better. So the way that we import this stuff in TypeScript is we don't use require. In fact, this doesn't even know that it's running in Node right now. I should probably fix that, but the way that we express this in TypeScript is we want to import star as express from express. So express is a module, and that's going to bring in a whole bunch of JavaScript named things, and we just want to take them all in and call that one collection express. So now I can do things like express dot, and if it could oh, there we go. Express dot. Well, these aren't the right things. It's my import. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Well, it's not showing me the stuff that it's importing. All right, well, let's do the same thing with import star as HTTP from HTTP. Import star as body parser from body parser. Okay, so we've got those. We cannot find module HTTP, but we can find the other modules. That's weird. Let's take a look at that real quick. Oh, that's right, because TypeScript doesn't know that I'm running in Node. So this is where I should probably do some better job at the startup, because for the server, I need a tsconfig. Since I'm doing this Groundhog style, I just have to do it myself. Or do I? Actually, there is another way. So here I am in Yaka. I can cd to source, come on, source. And then I can go into server. And now, should be able to do npx tsc, that's TypeScript compiler. npx runs anything that's in my node modules as if it were a command line tool. That way I don't have to globally install these things. So then I ran -init, and it just created a tsconfig file for me. There we go. Okay. That's better. So I'm targeting ES5, the module format that I'm going to be using, CommonJS. CommonJS is the module format used by Node, so that's the one that I want to use for the server-side stuff. Here are my other options. AMD is a good option for, well, it used to be a good option for the web client. UMD is probably the best option for the web client now. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to do an ES5, CommonJS, and let's see, we're going to need to do a few other things here. Let's do strict type checking. I always do strict type checking. I also always do no implicit any. True, just like it says right there. Strict null checks. I haven't actually tried that one yet. That sounds like fun. Let's turn that one on. Strict null checks. Yeah, buddy. Strict all the things. Why not? Everything's strict. No implicit this. Raise errors on this expressions with an implied any type. Okay. I shouldn't be implying any for anything anyway. Any. Parse in strict mode and use strict for the source file? Sure, why not? So, strict all the things. Additional checks. Yeah, why not? Turn those all off. Turn those all on. Unused locals. Unused params. I'm just deleting the comments because I want to keep things nice and clean. Maybe it would make sense for me to keep the comments in because I don't actually know what these are. But, all right, so module resolution. So in this case, let me go ahead and keep that around because I'm not sure if I need to tweak anything there. I don't think so. But, all right, so back up to this. I know that lib, I'm going to run into some issues there. I'll keep that one around. Allow JS, nah. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do any JSX for this. Maybe for a later one I will, but not right now. Declarations. No, because I'm not going to be publishing this as something to be consumed by another TypeScript project. But source maps. Definitely want source maps. Why do you want source maps? Because if you get an exception, the source map will you'll be able to read the exception to see where it came from in your source code, not in the compiled source code. All right, outfile, outdir, I'm probably going to need to use. Let's keep the rest of these for right now. So this is getting a little bit better, but now I can't find anything. Oh, okay, I've got any's, so that means I need to bring in the types for express, and still can't find HTTP. Is HTTP a separate? No, it's not. And the types for body parser, right. So let's go ahead and add those. Go back out to Yaka, and I'm going to do npm install save dev because my type declarations are just for compile time. At types, it is at types, right? Tells me right here, at types express. At types body parser. Okay, install those dev dependencies. And in they come. While that's installing, I do know that I should be able to see the HTTP stuff, and I should be able to see process. That's another thing that's highlighted. Well, it was highlighted here. Now it's... Body parser is good. Express is good. Now invoke an expression like call signature type of B is no call signatures. I thought maybe it's this express from express. Okay. Maybe that's how it all works. Okay. So this should be enough to give me a working Express server. And I've changed my imports so that these look like a TypeScript module. And so now I should be able to tell Webpack to use TypeScript to compile this module. How do I do that? I need to look up some instructions because I don't remember. What I need to do is install a loader. Yes, TS loader. npm install save dev ts loader. So this is the TypeScript loader. It's going to take my TS files and compile them into JavaScript. tsconfig looks similar to what I've got here. Yeah, it's just the outdir. I need to set the outdir. That should go to the dist folder. It's exactly how I wanted it set up here. So here's my tsconfig outdir. So this should go. Now I am inside of server, inside of source, so this should go out. That would be to the source level, and then out again. And now from here, I can go to dist. So inside a server, out, out, and then the dist folder should pop into existence once I tell it to compile this thing. The way I tell it to compile this thing is I set up a Webpack config. I could copy and paste this thing, which doesn't seem like a bad idea. In fact, I mean, this is all this does is it tells me what my entry point is. I'm just going to have to change that to source/server/server.ts. The rules that I set up for my module are TS files. I'll get rid of the X. Don't need that. Are going to use the TS loader. And don't look in node modules for any TS files. So if I'm using any TypeScript files, TypeScript packages, they don't get compiled with this thing. We're going to resolve the extension TS and JS. I'll show you why, but we don't need TSX. And we're going to produce bundle.js in the dist folder. Okay, that's close enough. So Webpack config, that will go, that goes right here. Wait a minute. Webpack is for the client-side stuff. I'm not going to Webpack the server-side stuff. So we'll get back to this. For right now, I just need to use the TypeScript compiler to compile something into the dist folder. That's pretty simple. Okay. I say it's simple. Now I just have to remember how to do it. So I'm going to use npx to run the TypeScript compiler, TSC, and I have to tell it well, what do I have to tell it? I have to tell it the input file, and then I tell it the output file. Okay, I can do --out file, but I can also say, you know what, all of the configuration options are right here. I just want you to use those compiler options. So I'm going to use the --build. That's the one I need. --build with tsconfig. So let's do npx tsc --build. Then I want to go into source and server and tsconfig JSON. Go. So this has just created a dist folder. And in this dist folder, I've got a server.js. And that server.js is a compiled version of my server TS. Beautiful. That's exactly what I want. Because right here, package.json, I said dist server.js, and that's the thing you should run. Okay. Now, all I need to do is make sure that this is my compile step. So let's copy that goal leader. And back in my package.json, I'm going to set up a script. I'm going to call the script build. And this build is going to do this, except I don't need the npx because I'm already running in the scope of Node, so it can already find these runtimes in the Node modules. So that means I should be able to run this and regenerate the dist folder. Well, you wouldn't be able to see it. So let me first do a clean. And this is going to rm-rf dist. In fact, let's be explicit about that. Use the relative path. Okay, so npm run clean. Dist folder goes away. npm run build. Dist folder comes back. There it is, yes. Okay, very nice. So let's go ahead and run this guy. How am I going to run him? Well, we have main, but we don't have a run or a start. So let's go ahead and create a start script. And this is going to be node dist server.js. So run that thing. npm run start, which I could abbreviate to just npm start. Those are synonymous. And there we go. We just ran it in Node, and now we have an app running at localhost 8080, which is precisely what I told it to do here. Take port 8080, and then print that out. But of course it's, it did the apt-get on that port, so that means that I should be able to go here, and it's running. It can't get anything. I haven't configured it out there, but it's running. This, believe it or not, is progress. You know what I'm going to do? Even though I am going to throw this entire folder away, let me git init. Now, I'm not doing this inside of Windows Subsystem or WSL Windows Systems for Linux because I want all of this stuff to work over here. And this stuff is working within the Windows file system. Windows System for Linux looks at a projection of that file system. It's kind of complicated. But I've just learned I'm using MingGW because that's the Windows file system and not the WSL. But holy cow, look at all this. And that's because I've got a whole bunch of things inside of node modules. So one last thing before I check in. .git ignore. I'm going to ignore node modules. And whatcha, now we're just down to 7 changes. There's my git ignore, package.json. Oh, I still have my dist stuff, so let's say dist go bye-bye. All right, so ignore that. So all we have is my source code, my package.json. Looks good. Initial commit. Now, the next thing that I would like to do, we're going to leave this open because we're going to come back to that, is, oh, that's how you run it. Oh, now you add some routes. So I like to do this in a separate file. So let's create a file called routes.js, and we're going to do this stuff. So here we are on the server. We're going to create a new file called routes.js. We're going to import HTTP from HTTP. It's not HTTP, I need path. Import. In fact, I can create an import statement from path. What can I import? All of this stuff. Now, notice this is importing inside of the curly braces. That's because the module itself is a JavaScript object. And so this is decomposing that into several different things that I can import. Or I can just import the whole thing like so. That's right, that's the difference between import star as and import this. Is star as takes default. And we don't want default, now we want all the stuff. So there's all the stuff that's in path. It's the entire namespace, all that stuff. Okay, which means now I can do path dot, and I get all of those methods that I could have imported independently. Okay, the method I want to use is join, path.join. And so I'm going to configure routes, and I want to export this function. And the app that's coming in, this is Express. So I want to import that namespace. So let me do an import from Express. And here is the Express interface. There it is. And why are you complaining about? Types can only be used in a TS file. Thank you. TS file. Great. There we go. And it's complaining because it's declared but never used. And I told it to complain to me about that. Remember? Right here. Let's be strict on this. Strict, no unused locals. Strict might get annoying, but let's keep it on. Let's try to keep our code clean. Okay, now we're going to do an app-get / app.get, and then the route shall be /. So we want the root, and now we give it some handlers. And so the handler that I'm going to give it is just a lambda or a function. Request, response, and next. There. And so I want to send the file index.html. Send file. Where's this file? I'm glad you asked. Path.join. And so now I'm going to take in dir name. Hey, look, it knows that I'm in Node. It knows that dir name exists. And I'm going to attach to that. I don't want my HTML files to just kind of be hanging out here. I want them to be in a separate folder that I'll call views index.html. So that means that wherever that is on the compiled version, that's where I want that to be. So this other stuff here, it's clear but never used. Is that how you do that? You just use underscore? Well, you can't use two underscores. Huh. No, that's kind of janky, but yeah, you put an underscore in front of it, then it stops complaining. Okay. I learned something. All right, so we're going to configure that route. So whenever you get a slash, go find this file. Perfect. So now in the server, before we start listening, we want to configure routes. Well, where's that coming from? That's coming from /routes or ./routes. So enter. There it is. Import that from the routes. And so I have to pass in app. And that's what app is. It's an express. Okay, so we've configured the routes. And then when we get, we're going to send the file views index.html, which should be here. But let's see that before we do anything else. So npm run build. And there's my routes.js. npm run start. npm start. There we go. So now if I refresh, then boom, an exception happens. Notice this file or directory. There it is. Jinaga dist views index.html. It's telling me exactly where it wants to find that file, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. So let's make it happy. Let's put that file there. Well, I don't want to put it there directly because npm run clean. Boom. It would be destroyed when I do that. So instead, I want a new folder inside a server called views. And inside of here, I will have index.html. This is good. So let me do an HTML5. Voila. So there's my HTML document. And let's say, sure, whoops, tab, and then the document title will be yet another chat app. Save that. And just to make sure, H1. Yet another chat app. So when we serve that up, we should be able to see that on the page and in the title bar. So that means that needs to be copied up there, which means that my build step needs to do something a little bit more exciting. So it does my TypeScript compile, then it also does a copy from src views / that's a folder to who is this? Oh my goodness, the world is ending. Gah! My wife is at a scrapbooking retreat and she just broke one of her tools. Ah. All right, so to dist / views. And I think that I need to do, well, let me just try that. I think that that's not going to quite work. But we do npm run build, and it's going to run the TypeScript compiler. And then when it's finished with that, it's going to run the copy command and cannot stat source views, no such file. Source server views. Yeah, but this gives me a chance to try that out. So I have my dist folder. It has my compiled code in it. I'm going to copy source server views to dist views. Omitting directory, that's right. I remember. I think it may be -R, and then it does it. There we go. So that's what I have to do. Copy -R. Okay, so that's my build step. TypeScript compile, copy the views, and we're good. npm run build. And we're good. Then we do an npm start. And now it's running. And I refresh. And yet another chat app. Whoop. Okay. This is progress. I mean, it's no bouncing ball, but it's some progress. All right, serve up that home page. Okay. Now, what's my next step? Let's take a look here at my next step. We include that, we call it, we configure our landing page. Okay, we already got all that. And now, let's continue with the Jinaga client. The main event. We're finally here. Jinaga. Woohoo! All right, so you need to include the client-side library. The best way to do that is Webpack. So here I'm talking about creating a source main.js. And so, yeah, that's not just how you import things in TypeScript. That's also how you import things in ES6. Pretty awesome. It's like these people are all talking to each other. But I'm not going to do it at source main.js. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do this at source client main.ts. Bloop. So there's all that stuff. How is this all breaking down? Well, you see here we're importing Jinaga browser from Jinaga dist Jinaga. So Jinaga, just as its own, we go into here into npm to our node modules. Oh my goodness, there's already so much, so many things. Most of this comes from Express. Jinaga doesn't have too many dependencies on its own. But right here, Jinaga, it comes with this little, where did it go? Oh, somewhere in here. Oh, that's right. It's inside a dist. And it says so right here in the package JSON. It says your main. You don't actually need to do any of this as you're building an application. I'm just trying to help you understand it a little bit better. Your main right here is dist index.js. So dist index.js. That is the ugly minified source code, well, compiled to JavaScript code for Jinaga, the server component, the thing that runs in Node. Jinaga, the client component, is in dist Jinaga.js. That file right there. So notice it uses a different package structure. This is using define, whereas this one is some other weird thing. But this is one module definition type that's appropriate for the browser, and this is a different module definition type that's appropriate for Node on the server. Furthermore, this one has a bunch of files that are intended for you to use, or a bunch of classes that are intended for you to use in the browser, like Jinaga browser, and this one has all the other stuff, like the Postgres stuff, that you're just going to use on the server. So when you are writing client-side code, you have to import Jinaga dist Jinaga in order to get Jinaga browser and all that fun stuff. Then you can create, and you will get a... You're supposed to get a Jinaga. You're not supposed to get an any. What's this any stuff? Import Jinaga browser. And oh, that's because I don't have a tsconfig here. I want the tsconfig here. Let me kill that. And I'll start with just copying this tsconfig. Let's see what I want to change. The module will no longer be common.js. This one I'll use UMD. Okay, I think that's right. Or do I want to use none? Because I'm just going to use the script tag to bring in this file. I don't want to... let's start with UMD. I don't remember specifically. All right, so we still want our source maps, our outdoor. Let's go ahead and collapse that guy. The outdoor dir is not going to be dist. It's going to be dist/scripts. Although, you know what? I don't think this is really going to matter because I'm about to use Webpack, and Webpack is going to figure out, it's going to decide where the files go. All of the strict things turned on. Now, where I know that I'm going to have to do some extra stuff is lib. I need some extra libraries when I'm running in the browser, but we'll do that when we get to it. Now that I've got this, then Jinaga is Jinaga. Now find a declaration file. You really should be finding a declaration file, but I might need to... Sometimes it does get confused. Let me just try. Restarting just to see if it got confused. Sometimes it does. I kind of hope that it isn't that I'm about to learn something else. And let's see, let's let it go ahead and load all of its stuff in. If I hover over this, and yeah, it still says it can't find the declaration. Okay, so it's not that it was confused. We really are learning something at this point. So, as in any type, all right. At this point, I'm really tempted to go look at one of my working projects, but that's against the rules. I can't do that. Okay. What I can do is I can switch over to this guy. So let's just throw that away for a second. We'll get to that in a little bit. For right now, let's just set up my Webpack config. So I want Webpack config and I want it here. JS, not JSON, JS. And that's because it's not just a standalone object. You have the entire option of using code inside of this thing. So here we can require path. We can actually use this in order to compute paths. We don't have to just hard code them in there. So my entry, this is going to be my client-side stuff. So the entry is source client, and we will call this main TS, module rules. So I don't want to allow the X, so it's just TS, not an optional TSX. I'm going to use the TS loader. I'm going to exclude node modules. I'm going to resolve TS and JS files, and I'm going to output, should I call it bundle.js? Sure, let's call it bundle.js inside of dist scripts, which is the same thing that I said here, dist scripts, just to keep it consistent. Like I said, it's going to use this, it's not going to use that, but just to keep it consistent. Now, let's write something in main.ts so that we know that things are happening. I'm going to do a window dot and with alert. Here I am, rock you like a hurricane. And then I'm going to export. Is that what I want to do? Yeah, I'm going to export an empty object. That way, we're marking this as a module. If we don't have any export, then TypeScript is just going to take that and just pass it right on through. Okay, so now we should be using the TypeScript loader to run this with Webpack. How do we run this with Webpack? I'm glad you asked. We do npx Webpack, and then we have to tell it nothing because it just picks up the Webpack config. And there's our scripts folder, and telling us a few warnings. We'll fix those warnings. Here's my bundle.js, and voila. Interesting. The pound function thing. And then a whole bunch of stuff, blah, 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 blah. The module loader is basically baked into this file, and somewhere in here is the actual window.alert. If I were to then go to my views, here it is, this guy, and just before closing body, I do a script source equals, and then I just go back to, well, this is from the browser, so this doesn't really help me much because I'm in the dist folder when I'm on the, well, actually, we're just going to send this back to Express. So scripts/bundle.js. So that means I want Express to resolve this route to the bundle.js file. The way I'll do that is I'll go back to routes, and in addition to configuring that, I will do app.use, and then I will do a static dot come back here. How did I do that? Yeah. We're about to get there. We're going to do the send file. Oh, we did the send file thing. Let's just do that. That's just as easy. All right, app.get. So /scripts/bundle.js. Then I'm going to request response next. Actually, I want to use the response. So response. Oh no, res dot. What are you doing? Res dot send file path dot join dir name with scripts bundle.js. Send that file. That's the route. Don't need that static anymore. In fact, I'll do Control Shift O. Nope. I always mess that up. Control No. Control-Alt-O. Yes, Control-Alt-O to clean that up. There we go. So that's going to, whenever I see /scripts/bundle, like I see it here, then I'm going to grab this file right here, and I'll send it back. There's another way where I can say just everything in this folder. I forgot the syntax, and it's just going to do this for right now. Okay, so if I do an npm run build, it does the TypeScript compile, it does the copy the views, and then I do npm run, npm start, or npm run start. There we are, we're at 8,000, and we refresh, and it didn't alert. What happened? Why did you not alert? Let me see. Here's the body. I should have a script tag in there at the end of that body. And it's probably... I probably forgot something to tell it to overwrite. Let's see. What happens when you do this? Yes. Oh. You see that? Oh, you see how stupid I can be sometimes. All right, no trailing slash. How about that? Now this, that, no. How about we just go there? And now this is correct. Okay, that's the command I want to use. Package.json. The views folder just should end up there. All right, so npm run clean, and I want to make sure that I add Webpack to the build command. Then I can run npm run build. So it does the TypeScript compile, and that creates my routes and server, runs Webpack, and that creates my scripts bundle, and it runs copy, and that creates the views index. That's pretty cool. Okay. Now npm start. You're listening, and I refresh, and boom, it's here. Okay, it's running my client-side code. It's compiling the server-side code. All that's good. If I take a look at the bundle.js, it's all that stuff. But there's a module loader kind of buried in there. And then there's also a little call to window.alert somewhere in there. Here it is. Window.alert here. So that's my actual code buried within the middle of this module loader. So a lot of overhead right now, but as we get more and more stuff, this becomes less and less important. Ooh, what does she want? Oh no! The world is ending. Okay. Now we have some errors that I want to take care of. Critical dependency require function is used in a way which dependencies cannot be statically extracted. Not sure what that means. I'll have to Google it. This other one, though, the mode option has not been set. That's one that I'm familiar with. Here. I'm just going to say, right here at the top. Oh wait, you know what? You are using the wrong line endings. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch you to tabs. Nope. Okay. And then using spaces 2. All right, so that's matching what it is. Now let's convert to tabs. There's my tabs. Change the tab size to 4. All right, and now switch it back to spaces 4. Nope. I want you to convert to spaces. There we go. I wish there were one keystroke that would just say, oh wait, these are 2 spaces, let me make them 4. If there is one, I would love to know about it. If you want to type it in there, I could read it. But okay, so now at the top of this, we are going to set the mode to production. Yes, I know I'm in development, but let's build as if we were in production. Why not? Okay. So now it's going to run all that stuff. It's going to not tell me that I haven't set the mode. And so I'm still going to get this. Require function is used in a way in which dependencies cannot be statically extracted. Let's, since that is a warning in main TS, let's continue building this out and see if that starts to go away. Okay. So, I know the first thing that I want to do is import. So let's write an import statement from Jinaga /dist/Jinaga. And you are just not going to find that declaration file. And I think that that's because this tsconfig doesn't know that it's loading. If the module format is CommonJS, yeah, Jinaga dist, Jinaga. That's weird. Dist. Yeah, interesting. So it's bringing in CommonJS, and maybe it's because I took away allow.js. Yeah, look at it. Okay. Well, it has types. But I think we're getting closer. Interesting. I've done this before. I don't remember having to do the allow.js when I brought in Jinaga dist Jinaga. Interesting. Let's see. Let's see if I can import from Jinaga on the server side. Yes, there's all my Jinaga stuff. So, authorization rules, that's the server side only thing. Jinaga browser is exposed here so that I can use the browser and the server, the client and the server can share some stuff, but yeah, so that's working just fine. And if I do this, Okay. I remember what I had to do before. And these are not yet in these instructions because these instructions don't assume TypeScript, but I'm going to assume TypeScript. All right, so what I need to do is I'm going to go ahead and import Jinaga browser for right now. When it gets to the server, that's going to have to know to use Jinaga dist Jinaga. And I'll show you how to set that up. But first, let's run into the error. So now that I'm importing, I don't need the export. It knows it's a module. And I can do some fun stuff with the... Yeah, here we are. So we're importing the Jinaga browser. We're going to create a J, so const J equals Jinaga browser dot create, and then I give it browser config, which right now I will leave empty because that's what the instructions say. Then let's go ahead and have some fun here. We are going to, in fact, I know that, yeah, these are not quite right. Okay. Let's go ahead and define these as proper types. So class, I'm going to have a class called domain. And this is going to be a Jinaga class, and so every Jinaga object is just a JSON object that has a type. So I'm going to define a public static type domain. In fact, I'll call it Yaka domain. And then type will be equal to domain.type. And then I'm going to have a constructor that gives me all of the other stuff. So this has a domain has a name. So we will have public name string. So now domain defines a class that has a type and a name. I'll go ahead and export that class. No, I'm not, because I'm about to use it. Okay. So the next thing that I want to do is to create a new domain. So I will say const domain equals new domain Yaka, which I just did right there. So that's essentially the same thing, except type is Yaka domain, name is Yaka. Okay. Then I want to define a visit. It's got to type visit, a time, and a domain. So let's define that class. Class visit. It's got a type, which we will call yaka.visit. Type equals visit.type. And then a constructor that takes two things. First of all, a domain. And then, secondly, a created at, which is going to default to a new date. That means right now. Okay. In fact, I don't think I need to say this explicitly because you can figure out that it's the date from that. Cool. All right, so that's how I declare a visit. So that's going to create this new visit right here. That should say time, created at, whatever. All right, so I want to record the fact that I have visited the page. So I'm going to do j.fact new visit for this domain. Where's my domain? Oh, domain's right there. There we go. Now, j.fact is asynchronous. You see that it's returning a promise of a visit, the visit I've just passed in. So what I can do is run all of this inside of an async function. Which I immediately invoke. Okay, so this is where I need to add some stuff for live. So I need ES 2015 in the live option. I'll do that in a second, but there we go. We can do this, which means now we can await that because we're inside of an async function. Okay, so let's switch over here. Lib shall contain ES 2015, blah, blah. And now that goes away. Perfect. All right, so we've created the domain. Then we have created the visit, and we said, make that a fact. It's a fact that I have visited at this particular time, this domain at this time. Now that I've got that, I can do a j.query. So I want to query the domain for visits in the domain. So the way that I like to do this is the result of the, I'm going to create a template function, and I'm going to create that inside of the class that is the result of that template function. That doesn't make any sense. So let me just do it. Static function. Well, I don't have to say function. This is a static function on visit, which I'll call in domain D. Okay, so this represents a template. I want this template to match a visit that looks like this. Type equals visit type, and domain is D. Okay, so match any visits that look like that. That's now a template for the things that I want to query. So that means I can say const visits equals await j.query. Starting from the domain, I want to query j.for visit in domain. And that gives me back the visits. This is Jinaga. One method to create facts, another method to query them. You're doing all that from the browser. Not writing any custom API code on the server, not writing any database code on the server. So there we go. And then once I've got it, I'm going to have a message, your visitor number visits.length. And then I'm going to use documents. Document needs to know that there's a DOM. Hey, there's a DOM. Save. Okay, now I know there's a DOM. Okay, cool. So create a paragraph, set the inner text, append that child. And so that is all that code. Just translate it into TypeScript. All right, so now I have some Jinaga code that records a visit every time you hit the page, and then it spits out on the page which visitor number you are. Let's see. If we can build it. Running TypeScript, running Webpack, copying the views. It's really having to think about this. It shouldn't be that difficult. Okay. All right. Bunch of errors. Blah 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 blah. Okay, here we go. Where does it start? Okay. So we're in the middle of Webpack right now, and we see a whole bunch of things. We're getting node modules express lib. Okay, this is telling me Webpack is looking at things that it should not be looking at. So we need to tell Webpack to just pay attention. Pay attention. Eyes right here. Where I need you to look. Where I need you to look is just here. It's under well, where is that again? Let's go back to TypeScript, and I want to configure TypeScript. And so use configuration file. There we go. Here's my configuration file. Here's my entry. Here's my output. Okay. Getting closer. All right. Library target module include. That's the one I want. Include. That's inside of the rules. All right. Include. And this is going to be an array. So include this array. All right, so I want path dot join. So I'm using underscore dir name. And then I want to bring in source client. And that's it. Yep. So that's saying only look inside of the source client folder. Don't look inside of the source server folder. That way we're not going to be seeing any module express stuff. All right, let's just run that part and see if that's if that compiles. That way we're not waiting for all of the TypeScript compile. Still having issues there. And why is that? Okay, and that's because... No? Oh, okay. And this is because right here, it's starting with source client main.ts, just like I told you, only use source client. All right. Then it's going into Jinaga dist index.js. That's the server side build of Jinaga. And so now it's bringing in Express, which the server side depends upon. I don't want to bring in Express. I want you to use the dist, Jinaga's dist, Jinaga.js. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you when you are resolving to use an alias. So resolve alias. And so the alias for Jinaga shall be henceforth Jinaga dist Jinaga, which, since it's including JS, will go to Jinaga dist Jinaga.js, find that module there, and that one will not depend upon Express. So Webpack it again, and this time, it's gonna Do you see that? It worked. Okay. All right. So now we have a bundle that includes Jinaga. Let's take a look at that bundle. This is a much bigger bundle than we saw before. Whoa, because that's got all of the Jinaga code in there too. Okay. So let's, all right, yeah, now let's go ahead and close that. Yeah, so you don't get so confused. All right. Now, npm run build, which will include the Webpack, but it'll also do all the other things. Okay. And so with that, we should have all of this code compiled in there, running on the client. So when I do an npm start, and it's listening at localhost 8080, yet another chat app, refresh, you're visitor number 1. Woohoo! You're still visitor number 1. Ooh, wait a minute. That's because it's not talking to the server. When I'm refreshing, it just reloads all of that data. So, yeah, Jinaga's doing all of its things. It's creating a visit, and then it's counting that visit. Hey, I got 1 visit. But we needed to talk to the server. Say, hey, server, go ahead and store this visit. We'll do that in just a second. But first, count the number of visits. Voila. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and get a clean slate, nice and clean. We are source, we are server. We are server.js. All right, we're configuring routes. I want to also configure the Jinaga runtime. So let's create a new file. We will call it Jinaga runtime.ts. Let's configure this. We will first import, let's create an import statement from Jinaga. I want to import Jinaga server, not Jinaga browser like we just saw. No, this is Jinaga server. So I'm going to export a function called configure Jinaga. And this is going to take an app, which is an express. Where is express coming from? Import from express. Express. There's where express is coming from. Now, I'm going to use good old Jinaga server. So const, there's this J inside of an object here coming out of Jinaga server.create. And just like before, we send in a config. We'll start with an empty config. The results of the config are J, and what else? Ah, it's not telling me. What do you mean you're not telling me? Come on. Tell me. Tell me. Jinaga server instance, yes, but I thought it would tell me. Okay, we'll just call it s dot. There's the name handler. Will you just tell me that you've got a handler? Oh, I needed to scroll up to the top. All right, so you get J, you get handler, you get this with session thing. Right now we just need handler. That's really all we need. And so then I want to do app.use for the route Jinaga. This handler. That is all. So whenever a request comes in for /Jinaga, use Jinaga's server-side handler. So that means here in the server, configure routes, configure Jinaga against this app. And you're good. So now my client side needs to know to use that /Jinaga route to talk to the server. So right here, when it creates J from the Jinaga browser, it sets the HTTP endpoint to /Jinaga. use that endpoint. Okay. Run build. One of these times I'm going to try to make this process easier too. I'm going to try that. So we should be able to get to a point where we do like an npm run dev, and it sets us up in development mode. So as we make changes, it compiles, puts the things in the right places, has the server running, restarts the node process whenever it needs to, all that fun stuff. But for right now, I'm getting some clipping. Sorry about that. All right. For right now, let's run this, and here's my Yaka app. My mouse is dead. There we go. Okay. So you are visitor number 1. All right, you're visitor number 1. Hey, you're visitor number 2. You're visitor number 3. Visitor number 4. Woohoo! So it's talking to the server. In fact, let's see it. Let's see it. All right, so here we pulled down the HTML. Here we pulled down the bundle, all the JavaScript. Here we called save. Save. So we're saving some facts. We're saving the domain, we're saving the visit. Save them all to the server. There's your facts. You can see all the stuff that's in the facts. So this is, turn that into facts, save them on the server. That's just what Jinaga is going to do for you. Then it runs a query. It says, hey, I want to know how many visits I have. Here's the response. You've got a whole bunch of visits. Visit. Here, let me visit. You've got 4 visits. There they all are. And they have all these different hashes. And so, yeah, okay, go ahead and load. So I want to know these 3 hashes. It so happens I already know the 4th one because that's my visit. I just saved it. So yeah, go ahead and load that. All right, here's the response. Here's your 3 visits and the 1 domain that they all refer to. So the domain is the predecessor for each of them. There's the domain's hash. Domain, same hash. TXT, yeah. All right. So that's really inside baseball. But the save query load, all of that is happening against the /Jinaga route. So when it does Jinaga save, Jinaga query, Jinaga load, that's what was configured for you by just simply saying create. Okay. So it looks like we're all in good shape, except let's go ahead and start it back up again. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? What number do you think is going to show up here? 1. Yes, that's right, because we didn't configure it to save to Postgres. We just configured it to save, well, we didn't configure it to save anywhere. We just are using Jinaga in memory on the server. So let's set up Postgres. The way that we do that, and the instructions are right here. Yeah, web packet, yeah, all that stuff. Jinaga server, and we already did this. We did the HTTP endpoints. Postgres, there we go. Now we have to create a Postgres database. Let's use pg admin to set up a Postgres database. Come on, pg admin. You can do it. I believe in you. Here is pgadmin. I really need to upgrade to 4.0, but I'm not going to do that right now. So let's take a look at my server. There's my server. Pay no attention to that IP address. You can't get to it anyway. But database. Here is some other apps that I'm working on. But let's go ahead and create a brand new database, and we shall call it Yaka. Boom. All right, here's my Yaka database. And then I can go into the query tool. That's it. That's how you run scripts. And I want to make sure that I create a user. I believe I already have a user called dev with the dev password. Let me make sure. Login, groups, roles, dev. There's dev. This isn't going to let me look at the password, but I'm pretty sure I used that password, devpw. So now I want to run Jinaga setup SQL. So here's how I'm going to get to that. It's inside of Node Modules, Jinaga. So I'll do it this way. We're inside of Yaka. I'm going to run code with Node Modules, Jinaga, setup SQL. And boom, there's my setup SQL. I don't need the MS SQL extension. I'm using pgadmin. Okay, there's my setup SQL, which is going to run on Yaka, right there. So what's this all going to do? Well, first you got to create the database, create the user. We already got that. And then it's going to create public.edge. There's my edge table. It's going to create public.fact. There's my fact table. And public.user. There's my user table. That's it. 3 tables. Edges, facts, and users. Hey, that's a graph. Yeah, that's all it is. It's just a big old graph. Execute that. Successful. So now, inside of schemas, public, and tables, I've got edge, fact, and user. That's it. That's all set up for the server. So now I need to set up my Postgres connection. So let's just copy that. Don't need that anymore. And right here in server, well, Jinaga runtime, right here, there's my Postgres connection. So I'm going to run pg store is my pg connection string, and pg key store is my pg connection string. Key store is the database that has the user table. Store is the database that has the edges and nodes. So if you want to keep those in separate tables, which is probably a good idea, then you can give it separate separate connection strings, separate credentials, all that good stuff. And that means that you can actually back up your data, but then that key store that's got everybody's private keys in it, you can back that up separately. So that's going to be a good practice when Jinaga itself becomes like the thing that everyone builds in. So we create the Jinaga server, giving it these Postgres connection strings, which is the same connection string in this case. And now it knows where to save its facts. It's no longer going to use memory. It'll use the Postgres database that we just set up. And here we're providing the username and the password, which we've already created. 5432 is where it's running. That all looks good. npm run build or would. So compile that to the server, Webpack the other thing to the client, copy the views to the dist, bundle it, packle it, make it all runnable, and then npm start it up. And now what do you think it's going to say when I refresh yet another chat app? It's going to say your visitor number. Oh, wait a minute. It's going to crash. Why is it going to crash? Database my application. Oh, yeah, because it's Jinaga. Silly. All right. Build. And start. And refresh your visitor number 1, because that's the first visit that's in the database. Right? Visitor number 2, 3, 4. Now, shut it down, start it back up again. Memory is gone, but the data remains. Yeah, there you go. Okay. We are serving Jinaga facts out of a Postgres database, querying them on the browser, creating them on the browser. All that is good, all that is wonderful, all that is fantastic. Oh, and look, there's a starting point. Hey, look at that. And in fact, yeah, I don't have a starting point for TypeScript yet, but you know what? Now I do. So I am going to take these instructions. I'll turn them into a starting point on Jinaga.com for TypeScript, and that way it'll be publicly available for the next Groundhog Coding, where I can start from scratch, but then use that starting point and be up and running. That's the plan, and that's why we do this Groundhog Coding. So maybe one day, one beautiful day, when we walk into a client's office, we'll say, you know what, it's not going to take us 6 months because we've built entire applications in one sitting before. So let's just go. Let's just talk about your app and start speccing it out right here. You need this data, you need it queried in that way, you need to do these operations on it. Okay, let's talk through those things. And we can, my vision is that we can actually talk in terms of the business requirements and translate those directly into Jinaga facts. So a fact is the decision that a human has made. It's captured in JSON, it's expressed in terms of a class, and then saved into a database, and now you can run queries on it and figure out the results of those decisions. And so, talking to a person, what are the decisions you're making? What are the things you're doing? Capture those as facts. And then you start to build up an application. Okay, yeah, you do go away for a bit. You do refine that application. You, of course, write your tests. But you shouldn't be 6 months away from a working application. It should be days. So that is the vision of Groundhog Coding. That's the vision of Jinaga. Hope you've enjoyed this, and I will talk to you next time.